Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire, a podcast where I like to call industry titans talk about their failures because I believe that they're catalysts to incredible things. Today, I get to introduce and have an incredible man join us. His name is David Herrmann. David, say hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. What's really funny is that I like to introduce our guests because what I've realized in this space is that I will meet people before their titles very quickly and then get to know them on a personal level and then move on, which is the most beautiful way to do it. However, David's a little bit different. So I'm going to do something a little different and shake things up a bit. First, I'll give the official intro. Then what I did is I actually messaged some of your peers, David, and I asked if they could a one-liner of their perception of you in the space. Do that. And I received it this morning.
Okay. All right.
So buckle up. Buckle up. Right. Okay. So David, you've been in the D2C industry for over 16 years. What's really crazy too is, not only are you the CEO of Herrmann Digital and founder, but you also have a pivotal role as leader in product development at Northbeam. And as we know, I am the CEO of AdBeacon, which is another first-party data attribution and optimization platform. What's really great is I love that you're on here, and I'm going to have Raba on here soon too from Triple Whale. We're all friends. We're all cool.
Yeah.
But not only that, you've worked with Thinks, Ridge Wallet, Woobles, like all these big brands, Costco and Staples. I can't even list all of them because there's so many here. But I think what we need to come down to is your perception of your peers, which I think in the end is the most important part. So I reached out to Shaq and to Jordan Menard today. And I said, if you could describe David Herrmann in one sentence, what would it be? And they said together, David is the only known media buyer without any case studies or real world website to be able to work with any brand in the space just by being interested in them. He has a strong track record and he lives and dies by doing it himself. Really high efficacy. Jordan loves to just chat with you, more on a deeper level as well. And before I even met you, which is another thing we'll talk about, I heard so much about you. So with that being said, it was a very long intro, but David, welcome.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I like it. I'm not one to talk about myself a lot. I think I like to elevate people and kind of go that route. So it's always kind of fun to hear what people think, Yeah.
Well, we love the humility, and I'm going to press into that today and over it. But David, now that we know all your accolades, all the cool stuff, can you kind of describe to me what, if let's just say we were at a barbecue, what would your mom or your dad or a family member intro you as what you do and who you are?
I would say that what people would probably say about me is I'm just really good at, I guess, building hype around brands is probably the best way of saying it. I'm very diversified in the type of role I am in that regards, that I have had multiple touch points across this marketing industry where I'm not pigeonholed into one area, that I've kind of done almost all facets of it, from literally editing creative and conceptualizing creative, then it's been on television, to media buying for pretty large brands, to having access to some of the most richest people in the world and talking to them about what this industry is. So I think that's probably the best way of saying it. But at the end of the day, no one is doing hyper growth on brands. So,
Wait, your family would introduce you like that? They know in depth?
Yeah. I mean, my dad even, we talk about it quite a bit because, over the years, I was always doing this thing where parents are like, hey, how are you able to do these things and afford to live in and buy a house at your age? It's like, well, I've just been able to get lucky and get into an industry at a very young age. I've been doing this, honestly, since MySpace days. MySpace.com. Yeah. So I I've started with this where my mom was always like, hey, what is that you're doing? And she was very early on a champion when I did. Like she jumped on every social platform that I was doing ads for, posting about. She was also the one that was interested in, like, I remember her like listening to the music of the bands that I was promoting and be like, well, I would listen to this as, typical my conservative Christian mom. I would listen to that normally, but that's good for you. I can see you promoting that, So like my mom was always an advocate in that regard. So yeah, I think they would be like that. So they were very in the know.
That's awesome. That's honestly so great. My mom, good for you, because my mom still thinks I used to model, right? So I'd be on billboards and like do big things. And while she's always been a supporter of what I've done, she's kind of always had this like very watered down idea of what I do. And it's been very healthy for us. But right now, I'm pretty sure she thinks I work for Facebook. And then maybe like it comes down to remembering her Facebook password, she'll call me because I for sure know every password she's ever created, right? Like magically
Yeah.
mental telepathy
Yeah.
there. But good for you. Awesome. And,
Yeah.
for the listeners, there's a big reason why I asked David to be on this podcast. And the big reason is actually normally I would ask somebody that I have a very close personal relationship with because I believe relationships are everything. However, David, I've heard so much about you, like buzz, that when I was in a room with you, I didn't even know it was you. So I never even said hi.
That's funny. Yeah, I know. I that day I was funny. I was walking around. I was like, I think that's who that person is, but I don't know. And I was getting distracted by something else. And it's like a laser beam in those rooms where you're just like, oh, I'm actually just going to go listen to what this person's saying and just not say anything.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm not, I'm pretty good at networking, but usually when I'm with my peers in a room, I'm usually like, I'll figure out like somebody that I know and I'll go that way because it just gets the more comfortability and I just kind of stay. I don't know. I think it's just me in general. I just like to engage deep in conversation with like one or two people versus like quick chats all around rooms and things like that. So, so
Good. Let's go deep today because
yeah.
I align with that deeply. And that's why Jordan Menard is such a good friend of mine. And we talk about our faith, the big F word in D2C faith, right?
Yeah.
Not probably what you guys thought, but when we messaged each other on Twitter, which is a big thing, I kind of watch everybody. I'm new to the space. Not many people know who I am, which is a beautiful thing. But I've been here and I watched what you post. And then we messaged back and forth and we talked about our faith and alignment there. And that network is so powerful to have a really cool group of people that support each other. Like, I think it's a really positive space now. I've heard other things, but me coming in this age, it's been completely the opposite. And you're a big pillar in that. I've watched you just encourage others. I've watched you talk about things, however, have backing behind what you're talking about as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So huge kudos to you, but who knows, by the end of this, we might start fighting because we've got a North.
No, yeah, no, I think, a lot of people ask me about my Twitter and know about me through Twitter. And the funny part about my Twitter is I've never once had any agenda on Twitter. And that what I mean by that is I've had Twitter since 2008. I was posting on Twitter as my own personal diary about my frustrations in marketing. At the time, I had nobody following me, no one talking to me. It was literally me just, it is a place for me to vent or like get frustrated. And somehow, some way, people just started following it and it became this thing. And I've never wanted to change. Like I've never changed the way I've tweeted. And I think that, part of me is that's just my personality. I don't like to change because, oh, you have a following. Okay. So do what I do. So
there was something that you said on Twitter a while back, and keep in mind, like I say this all the time. There's no hidden secret here that I can't stand Twitter just because I'm not built for Twitter. I'm too I just say the most off the cuff things. I think I delete 90% of what I post because I'm like, oh shit, I don't think this is appropriate. However, when I see yours, where you're at and how candid you are, you'll be very honest about how you're feeling or feeling like an outsider in a space when you're in the space. And that rawness, there's a quiet and calmness when you identify real, right? And authenticity, and I would say like transparency. And you were saying that you like deep conversations. And I just saw that through Twitter. And I'm like, okay, he's different. So I hit up Jordan and I was like, who is this guy? And Shaq. And I'm like, who is this guy? And they're like, yeah, he's chill. So
Yeah.
I guess this is my roundabout way of saying thank you. And it's also a great segue for us to talk about something that I feel like is a very necessary conversation in the space. My whole journey to where we are now and the journey that will be far beyond has stemmed from a lot of failure, whatever the word failure means, right? And I'm very grateful that we've come to a place where we can be on the other side of the hill of failure. But it is a big, big thing that, for example, new people in the space or people who are building businesses that are struggling every day, all they see on Twitter is like, I'm making 50 million and I hit my 1 million mark and all these really great heights, which are fantastic. Let's highlight those, but let's talk about the hard stuff. So could you just kind of walk me through something that really highlights in your mind as a quote unquote failure? And I guess
Yeah.
how that sparked fire.
Yeah. It's actually pretty long-winded, but we'll kind of shorten it up. Back in mid 2010s, I met somebody that really was sort of like the opposite of me in regards to he loved to be the back end finance type business person. And we became really good friends. And we decided to basically build a business together. And it was an agency and it got to be, pretty significant, through my work and through his work. And what ended up happening was through just a process of, I think we just weren't equally yoked in regards to how we thought about things. And we ended up kind of breaking apart. And it, it took me a long time to get to that point of actually doing it. And what ended up doing was it delayed a lot of stuff and it hurt me pretty significantly in that, like, I have never once in my life had an anxiety attack ever. I don't suffer from that stuff really in that regards to like serious, levels of anxiety. And I broke down multiple times because of just how stressed and anxious I was over the situation. And it was something because, it was watching a product of something you really had a very significant hand in building kind of crumble. And the reality was it delayed a lot of things in my life, including getting married. Like I held off on asking my, girlfriend at the time to marry me because I was so distraught by this business situation. And I had multiple friends stepping in to help. And, it not only was I suffering from the fact that I'm the type of person that doesn't do conflict well. I don't like it. I'm pretty much always like, I want to resolve things. I don't want to go to bed any night without having to resolve argument or a fight. Like I want a resolution. And it was just this constant back and forth with somebody who didn't really see my side to things on anything. And then I tried to see their side of things. And I always felt that they were the wrong. And it was always this like tug and pull.
Yeah.
That ended basically abruptly. And I finally just pulled the plug and I ended it. I walked away from a significant amount of potential money in a situation, and essentially started over. I had no clients, nothing. This was at the beginning of 2020 when I said, you know what, I'm just going to start over from scratch. And I essentially within a month, I made back exactly the amount of money that I was making before. I basically built it, and it put a fire in me to just go ahead and do it. But the thing that I learned was I don't want to have a business partner at all. I can't do it. I don't want to be in that anymore. I said, I will take the risk of never aggressively scaling my business because I don't want to get to that point. Also, it was just having an effect on other elements of my life, right? I was not sleeping. I was just all around. Like I'm not a substance person. I don't really drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of that stuff really. But like I was just taking it out on just my body, like just by just being so like, but as a result of it, obviously COVID hits and I'm just building this business. And it put this fire in me to like, just kind of like find the right people to align with. And I met somebody along the way that he's not technically my partner in terms of like there's nothing written, but we're partners in that we both have our own entity businesses that kind of came together and said, you know what, we're going to do this together, no strings attached. Like we're just going to do this and really grow together as a business and only take on brands that we want to take on, that we like their ethos or whatever it may be. And that's been an awesome thing. And what's been great about it as I've been married and now had a kid, it's allowed me to have flexibility in my life where I don't have to be stuck at my computer 24/7. That, you know, if I'm like, hey, my kid didn't sleep last night, I can text the guy that works with me and be like, hey, like, can you handle this meeting this morning? I just can't get to it. And
Right.
now I'm in a much better spot. And so I think that to me is probably the biggest failure to fire sort of style. Yeah, that's probably it.
Okay. Well, okay. I wanted you to say everything, but I did make some notes that I think we should kind of like really sit and like marinate in. One of
Yeah.
them is you mentioned equally yoked. For those who don't know what equally yoked means in that reference, it basically means that the person that usually it's in a relationship, the person
Yep.
that you partner with should meet you where you're at. And biblically, what we say is that, like, for example, faith wise, somebody should be exactly where you're at. So then you guys can grow together rather than pull one up. Right.
Yep.
This is like a very watered down version of what.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all good. Yes.
But if we're talking about business, I think that was like a beautiful thing for you to bring up because,
Mhm.
in the place that I'm at right now, who you align yourself with is key. At the end of the day, all you have to do is look at yourself in the mirror and go, I like you, but do I like the people that I'm surrounded with? There's this saying that I think back in the day when we were kids, where it's like who you surround yourself will start to poison the well. And would
Yep.
you rather, you become who you hang out with. So
Yep.
if you don't really love the people you hang out with, is that going to impact you? I'm not saying you didn't like the guy. I don't know who your
Yeah.
partner was,
Yep. Yep.
right? But you very quickly realized that it didn't work out and it brought out maybe the worst in you.
Yeah. Yep.
So you
Yep.
mentioned anxiety. You said that that was like a fire moment. Do you feel like the thought of anxiety, the thought of treating your body so poorly, the anxiousness is real, by the way. When
Yeah.
you own something and it's yours, you wake up every day going, it's going to fail because of me or it's going to thrive because of me. And it's
Yeah.
almost an ego play, but it's also extremely crippling. Do you feel like that fuels you um, to say, I'm never going to be in that place again? I'm going to make sure I'm even more on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. For a variety of things. And there was mistakes made by me in a lot of regards to my past and how I allowed. I think that the previous relationship, I put too much trust in one person to kind of do things that the way that I was wanting to do them. That his mindset was different, right? And I think that now it really is. It is an aspect of control, right? Like there's like, okay, I do have that control. Where you know what? Like, I mean, long story short, my mom passed away a year and a half ago, right? And it was a situation where if I was in my old business, I don't think I would have been able to take off. I don't, because we did not build around it. We did not build as a team around it. In my situation, the guy that works with me literally messaged me, goes, hey, go, don't worry about it. And it allowed me to, like, honestly, it was the first time in my career of working this business where I felt that I had somebody who had my back and said, don't worry about it. And that was such a, um, like just fresh and just like at my lowest of watching this terrible situation, that on the business side, I'm like, I don't have to worry. And literally just disconnected, and he handled it. Even though I know he was probably stressed, he also didn't throw that stress on me. He just went and handled it. And to me, like, I mean, I've told him multiple times how much it meant to me, but it really was probably one of the greatest gifts that anybody could have. But at the same time, we're very equally yoked. And it's very, like, I align with him. And, we don't sit there and we don't talk about that. that often. It's just sort of that like
You know,
behind the scenes, like I know, you know, my background. I know your background. You know where I'm at and I know where you're at. Right. Um, so yeah.
I think it also stems from trust, David. So it's really interesting you said that because you seem like a control freak, not in a negative way. I'm a
Yeah.
control freak.
Yeah.
We I, Phoenix Ha, am a control freak. Okay. David Herman, I
I'm a control freak. Very much. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
so knowing that about yourself, right? Something you just beautifully said is that you let go of control to someone that you finally felt comfortable to trust. Maybe you weren't comfortable, but that was a moment that you were in your highest vulnerability and you were able to hand that over to someone, even though prior you were with somebody else and that wasn't handled well. Like
Yeah.
whatever that looked like. And that's so important because, like I said, like who you surround yourself with is key to who you become. And also, like all the business, all the money that we have, right? I firmly believe that all the money that we make will go at some point and then be regained. Like you said, how much money, by the way, if you don't mind me pushing a little harder, how much money would you estimate you lost and you gained back from that first round?
So, man, I would say it was the first round. We were probably in the millions.
Oh,
Uh, yeah. I mean, like equity wise and like what we built. Right. And, um, I don't know if I've gained, like, I don't know how much I've gained back from that. And like you get, it was all numbers. Right. I definitely am in a lot better place, even financially than I was. Um, And it also allowed me, and here was the other interesting aspect of this was, he was the finance guy and it actually required me to have to start dealing with finance and all of that stuff. And I've gotten to be pretty good with it. And I've gotten to be like a lot smarter in how to deal with that situation. And, again, like now, like back then I had like 9 to 12 clients that I was servicing by myself because that's just how it was built. And it was just like, you can't get deep. Like you focus on a couple brands that you're just like, I can control this. I can't control anything else. And now it's like, I get to focus on the 4 or 5 brands that I love and then work with the other guys, with the guy that I work with. And like, we pigeonhole back and like piggyback back and forth of like, hey, like I'm going to put focus on this today because you're too in the weeds. Let me take over for the day and see where we're missing and things like that. And it's just such a night and day difference.
oh, that's so good. I say these things and like the reason why I ask for a monetary like reference,
Yeah.
I don't care about money. The most disgusting, I'm going to say disgusting, it's a very
Mm,
triggered word.
yeah.
Conversation I have with people is how much money do you make? And that
Yeah.
answer will validate whether or not they want to continue the conversation. And to me, it always,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the reason why I bring this up, David, is I teach at a university, a private university here in California. And these kids come out and they are pumped, which I'm stoked for, right? They are pumped to go out in the workforce, but they demand a higher pay. They demand a lot without understanding the work ethic that comes from it, without understanding all the failures that will come. I think the thing that I wish they taught in college is you will have horrible things happen to you. You will have the world crashing around you. And how you come back from it will define who you are and your character. And there's something that doesn't have monetary value. It's your character. So the reason why I asked you about monetary, because everybody is so fixated on that idea. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Like I said, we could lose it at any point in time. And
Yep.
what you chose has LTV, lifetime value, friends, right? You have
Yeah.
longevity in the space because you've identified very quickly what matters to you and what motivates you for the long term versus
Yep.
with your previous partner, maybe the motivations weren't aligned and there would
Yeah.
have been no LTV there. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like, I think too, what puts me almost at an advantage when it comes to the money side of things is I was working when the big recession hit, right? I was laid off 4 times. Um, I was living on someone's couch. I had no place to live. Because I had taken a job with ESPN running their game day. I was basically going on the road with College Game Day, and I got, broke my lease at my place like $5,000 to break this lease. They're like, you're going to go on the road for all the rest of the year. And you're going to handle the digital advertising and digital media for college game day. And they, at the last minute, they pulled the plug because of the recession, right at literally the day before I was supposed to leave. And they said, oh, by the way, we don't have to pay your contract because technically you didn't work. And I was like, okay, so now I'm living on my friend's couch and in this situation. And it's like, you're right. You can lose it at any time. And I'm comfortable talking about money. I'm also very mindful of how quickly it becomes an evil entity in one's career and one's passion and one's drive.
Mm.
And, we live in Southern California where it's very expensive to live here. And having in a building the ability to do what we do and financially afford to live here, own property here, raise a family here, it's not cheap. And so it's not a flex, so to speak, as it is. We have to do what we have to do get well, and diversifying and being good at multiple things is really key. But I always have made it a point, especially in my personality on Twitter and in social in general, that I don't talk about the financial side of what businesses we've built or what we've done. I'm always down to talk it one-on-one, but it's more or less because people will fixate on a number, like you said, and it will become their driver. And I see this a lot with the younger generation coming up in digital marketing.
Yep.
When I entered the space, I was making $27,000 a year.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because I think the last two guests, maybe that'll be like a thing we do on the podcast, is how much money did you make in your first job? So you said how much?
27,000.
Okay. So my first job, I fought my ass off for. And also I was broke. I was modeling. So it was like net 90 for,
Yeah.
That means you always have to work to survive.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I was going to college and I drove from Thousand Oaks, people aren't familiar, all the way to downtown LA because I knew it was an opportunity and I was hungry. It was 3 times a week and it was unpaid, which by the way is illegal. And I hope they hear me. They're under now, but it doesn't matter. And at the time I had to pay $10 for parking every time. I didn't have $10 for parking and I had to choose between parking and starving. And I was just starved. I just was very thin. So, and what ended up happening is I finally got the position and I negotiated to 37.5. And I cried, David. I actually cried with happiness because I was like, I did it. And you just said that everyone is so glorifying this idea of making millions. By the way, $1 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of freaking money. Okay.
Yeah.
$50,000 is a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
And we throw these numbers and the number will never be high enough for you to feel satisfied if that is your goal.
Yep.
Never.
I 100%. And what's crazy about it is, I have a number for me that I've set that if I hit that number, I'm going to really pull back. I'm really going to pull back.
Wow.
That number is, surprising. I'll tell it to you.
Yeah.
It's 8.5 million. If
Let's
I
go.
can get to 8.5 million net worth, I said to my wife that's the number. If I can get there, I will pull back extensively. And I wouldn't retire because again, I would be bored. It's so bored. But it would allow me to just really chill and take time off whenever I wanted to do things that way. And so for me, that's always been my goal of whatever it be with real estate. I do a lot of real estate, things like that. And I'm trying to always just be very all over the place, doing multiple things and using my skills for that type. But I say all that because, again, this we're just constantly hammered with, oh, I drive a G-Wagon or I'm driving, I'm doing this or I'm doing this. It's wow, that's the 0.2% of the rest of us that are doing that. And cool, you buy a fancy car or, you buy fancy clothes or whatever. But the reality is that I think too many people become fixated on that and not what they're building as a career and the people that because that's at the end of the day, to me, the relationships that we build along the way are more important in general, because that is, like you said, your net worth is ultimately in the relationships you've built. And I would be nowhere if it wasn't for the people that have helped me. I mean, along the way, it's like, I don't have a website because I have people that are in my wing that refer me whenever I need work. And I don't even have to reach out. They're just like, hey, I'm saying you this because you're the best I know. And I want you to do that.
Let's hold right there. For anyone listening, there's a difference between clout and real relationships. So the reason why we've been doubling down on this conversation is because exactly what David just said. He doesn't even have a real website, but he's still making money and working. Why? Because of the relationships he's built, the reputation he's built, who he is through and through. If you want to be that guy or girl that constantly posts on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I've made this is how, and this almost gimmicky vibe that you're templating off of somebody else, I guarantee you will not survive. If you keep going to the experts asking, how did you do this? How did you do this? Guru, teach me. Okay, there's no such thing as a guru, A. And the only advice I can give you, and I'm hoping that maybe David aligns with me, is be yourself, be a good person, and propel others around you up. So you're telling me you have a goal of 8.5 million net worth. No, I want this to be so clear. So if you tell me that, David, I go, okay, what can I do to help propel you to get there? That's how I am. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I came from like the modeling industry, acting, all that, and did very well there. It became a very evil space for me quickly.
Yeah.
And I was doing well. And I think I was getting to a point where you had to make a decision of which route you wanted to go. Did you want to go the route you felt morally you wanted to go, or did you want to go the easier route, which would have been to just let go and then disassociate and whatever. And I chose very early on that I wanted to look myself in the mirror and be happy. And that route is not an easy route to take because it's not great. Yeah. But in those relationships, you never burn relationships unless they hurt you. Like you always forgive, you never forget. That's how I feel. And I just had a conversation with my friend recently who's, all my friends, when we're young, nobody's in anybody. And then as we grow older, people become somebody, whatever somebody needs. And now they're growing up and I said, hey, I called him. I was like, look, I'm associated with XYZ companies. If I think of you for a really good collaboration, I'll call you. And the way I look at it is I don't want a referral. I don't want anything. All I'm going to do is hand you over. I want nothing to do with the deal. I don't want to know anything. I'm just going to connect you. And he's like, why? And it really comes down to, I just want to see you succeed because I know you'll probably do it for me down the road, but there's no expectation of it. It's just to be a good person. So to your point, like you were saying, propel those around you, be a good person, do what you do best, know what works for you and what drives you, and success will come. Whatever success is.
Yeah, it's true. And I had a conversation with a friend yesterday where, again, it's like, I was just thinking of them and I was like, I think we ended up talking about his career and where he wants to go. And it's like, I just go, hey, like, I'm going to give you some unfiltered advice. And I know you didn't ask for it, but I feel it's my place as someone I can share with you. And I'm always down to have those conversations. I've been starting to have them more with just random friends that I meet on Twitter and just like, hey, like, I see, like, yeah, like I see where you're at. And like, I'm always very mindful to talk to people like, look, like, because you see somebody flexing this way doesn't mean that they're doing it all through their job. So don't think that this job is going to give you $1 million right now. It's not. There's reasons how people get to where they are. Obviously, most of the time it's real estate, like I've done. Like I've built, luckily owning a house in California helped propel you quickly, and buying houses pre-COVID helped you.
Oh yeah,
which I completely lucked out on. By the grace of God, I bought a house in 2019 in Redondo, and just like
Redondo of all places.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't love it. So look, like that's a complete God thing. But like, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, if there's any takeaways from this, it's like, if people really need to get mindful of the money situation and realize that most people there's a reality and then there's the perception that people are seeing. And our industry as a whole, I think, gravitates towards the money thing more than almost any other. I think it's probably sales and marketing. are so wrapped up in it, but marketers love to flex. They love to do it.
Mhm.
And it's like, look, we all are guilty of it because at some time you're excited. You are genuinely excited, but you have to always understand what is the intention behind doing it. Is it
Mhm.
because A, you want to be accepted? Okay, let's examine why that is. Or B, is it because you want people to see this because it makes you feel good and yada, yada. There's all these like different elements. And so the money issue and all of that stuff and talking through it is always something taboo, but it is a good topic to diagnose for everybody that's listening and talking about it and thinking about it and like how to do it and set a number for yourself. And that doesn't mean it's like, look, if you hit that goal, good. It's not really like, hey, like this isn't like the end all be all. I was fortunate to be raised by an entrepreneurial father who was able to retire at 48. He had someone approach him by his business, and he had set that number. And when he hit that number, he said, "That's it. I'm going to spend time with family. I'm going to do it." And you know, he's 65 now, and he just plays golf. And like, but he does nonprofit work where he teaches he meets kids that want to do entrepreneurial stuff and like helps train them for free. Doesn't ask for money. And like,
Awesome.
that's where I want to go. Like, I want to be able to do that. So not golf part. I'm not into golf, but the other part. Yeah.
There's something far beyond just that monetary goal, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. Because if we ever have a goal that you can meet and then there's nothing else left,
Yep.
it's really scary to me. It's like too much silence. Like to your point, you're going to be, but I love what you said there. There's so many really good nuggets that people like. I hope you guys, if you're on a treadmill or if you're listening to this driving, like rewind, listen back to what David just said, because I agree. I so wholesomely agree. And, if you're coming out of college, or even if you're like a grown person and you think that, you should ask for a raise, great, ask for a raise, but have a backing as to why. Also, if you're going to a new job or new position and you're demanding so much, what validates that demand? And what are you trying to get out? Because if you're trying to get out, like I said, monetary compensation, that will run dry very quickly in terms of motivation. But are you going after mentorship or what is filling your cup other than money? Because I guarantee you so much more will come from that. But as we move forward, there's this one section I want to get to, which is called hot take. A lot has been happening on Twitter in the last week. I don't know if we're going to go in that direction, but what is your hot take, David?
Sure. Wow. My hot take, I don't even know if it's a hot take. In that I would say that a media buyer in 2023 is not the same as a media buyer previously, in that if you do not have a strong background in creative and storytelling and overall marketing, you will not succeed in your job.
Damn. That is a hot take, but it's not. So let me just take this part really quick. You're basically saying that your hot take is if you don't have a hand in creative, copywriting, etc., then you're not going to be successful in today's day and age of media buying. I agree and I disagree. I agree, with the rise of AI, I firmly understand that there's going to be areas where people will be replaced. Okay, we're not going to dance around it. It's going to happen. However, I think there's something called an X factor. The X factor is something that takes you above and beyond. So what you're saying, David, is like somebody who can conceptually think of an ad that is a thumb stopper, that thinks above AI, you're going to do incredible. And then you have the skills of media buying. I personally believe that media buying can be taught, like the tactics, reading data, different strategies. But what you can't buy is this hunger for testing, this hunger to think outside the box, something that nobody else has. Because how many times do you run into media buyers that are like, but I can only do this within this parameter and my bid caps say X and my CPM say Y.
Yep.
And when I interview people to come work on my team, or when I did direct a team, I actually told them, you cannot use CPM as a metric. What else are you using? And it scared the living crap out of them. But anyway, back to your point.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the way that I approach this is I was fortunate to be able to work in marketing as I was basically running multiple companies doing marketing, right? CMO. Um, and as a media buyer that pretty much primarily focuses on growth and media buying now, um, I would be completely lost in the organizations that I work for if I did not have a strategy background, a idea of like what it looks like to run incremental tests on like geo targets, to being able to understand the business and like where it needs to go and how to get there from an overall marketing perspective, and also have a hand in like organic social media and strategy.
Yes.
And as a media buyer, you will not last in a job if all you do is read data and respond to it, because all of that stuff, AI can do it in 5 seconds and you're done.
What was that one more time?
Like,
You will not survive as a media buyer if all you do is read data. And
yes, it's just, it's not. And like, I'm trying to constantly get the people that I'm, either helping or think through. I do a lot of consulting with media buyers. And almost all of the ones that I think have trouble are that have just been taught, oh, yes, I'm only going to run manual bidding and I'm only going to do this and this and this, or I'm only going to look at CTR in these stats. Okay, like, how did you get there? What did you do? Well, that has a click-through rate of this. Okay, what are you going to do next? Ask for more ads that look like that. Well, what is it? Um, And like the brands that I work with, I am the guy that runs ads, but I'm also so focused on the overall creative strategy of
Mhm.
those brands. And also, like yesterday, I approached one of my clients. I said, look, I want to build this marketing campaign. I want this to be on organic. I want this to be in our ads. I want this to be our CTV ads. I also want this to be part of the ethos of the company culture. Here's what I'm proposing. And now we're like coming up with ideas around what's the tagline? Like, what's the thing we're going to do here? How is it going to look? What are the products that are part of it? And it's like, that's not a media buyer. That's just a marketer. Like, that's part of being in the marketing team. And so that
Yeah.
hot take comes from a lot of background in this, but also seeing and reading the tea leaves of where modern day marketing is and where agencies get things wrong and where media buyers get things wrong. And there's an overemphasis on in media buying circles that yes, profitability on day one is how they're running their businesses. And that's what the growth person's job is. But growth is not this line always up. Growth is responding to the downturns. Growth is looking at things on a 3 month, 6 month, 9 months, 12-month windows. It's not how it used to be. And people got very comfortable in the short attention spans and the quick buys during COVID,
Yep.
where they've forgotten about 2019 and 2018 and 2017 when that was not the case. And people are lost. They really are lost.
Yep.
So
Growth machines are not siloed. And that's kind of where my head is always at. But I think what is also so important in all this is that what you're saying and what the role that you basically just described is the bridge between performance marketers and creative teams, which is huge. You even took it all the way down to company culture, which I think is extremely important. But if you really think about this, and the constant battle is between performance and between creative. So, the creative teams, and I come from brand. So for me, I worked on the side of this is what our direction is going to be messaging wise across EMEA and all the different regions, especially US. This is what we're going to do print wise. And then nothing that we did had any direct correlation to growth metric wise, right? We just were very vibe oriented. And then vibe oriented marketing does not jive well with media buying directives, because we have an agenda, make money, right? They have an agenda, make culture. And when you start to merge the two, that's a juggernaut. And it's very rare to find someone who's able to do both. So what you're saying is you are the unicorn. And I'll say it for you. No, I'm saying that truly.
Yeah.
I understand it. You understand it. That's the X factor I'm discussing. So I completely agree with you, is media buyers, if you're not stepping it up now, if you're not thinking differently now, if you're not exercising the muscle to get uncomfortable in terms of how we view things and even it comes down to a very easy, fundamental thought process of, would I even like this ad? Do I even care about this product? And if I don't, what am I going to do to actually care? It's
Yeah.
such a simple question. And then how
Yep.
do you now execute?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. 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 I'll end that point. And when people are always asking me, like, where do I get started in this? I always say to this, go start looking at ads and critiquing them yourself. The best way that I learned was actually my mom ran marketing for my dad's business. And she said, every time I was out of ideas, I'd go to the store, I'd buy all of the popular publications and look at the ads. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so whenever I'm in a rut, I will instantly go and look up ads. And I'll also try to read excerpts from certain books that I've always liked. Obviously, David Ogilvy is a prime example of somebody I'll always go back and I'll start reading his quotes. It'll start you down that pathway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of what we do too, or what I've done on accident, is what I'll do is when I start hiring, it's not on accident. Let me take that back. When I hire, I don't usually hire media buyers that are extremely, I would say, skilled. Like, I'm doing air quotes for those who are not listening or watching. Skilled, right? Because I want to listen and see, do you have the tenacity to learn? Do you have like this hunger to change things, to disrupt the space? And then I will teach you everything else. But to your point is I tell them, okay, go into Facebook ad library, look up what they're doing. But then I also do another step further, which I would encourage anybody to do, is go onto websites, go through the flows of buying, quote unquote buying. What did you like and what did you not like? And I want like 10. I want you to look at 10 different websites of 10 different industries, lead gen versus e-commerce. What did you like and what did you not like and why? And what would you do differently? I want a full report. Before we even talk about media buying, before I even teach you what a funnel is, before I even teach you what every single acronym under the sun is, I want to know exactly how you feel about this and what you would do differently. And when they come back, they don't come back. They don't bring you anything.
Yeah.
And they do come back and it's watered down or very like, I can't work with that. But if you have no idea what to do in this space, but you tell me in depth something different, oh my God, I will pour into you. I will pour into you. So I'll give you every piece of knowledge I have and we will grow together. So echoing what you're saying, I completely agree with you. But that being said, I kind of want to round us out on a really positive note. What is one thing you would say, to somebody just coming into the space to encourage them? It's a very open-ended question. What'd you say?
Yeah. Find a mentor that aligns with your goals and vision, as well as just your overall just person. And really try to either just soak up everything they've done, and cut out the noise. As far as I entered the space when digital marketing was just getting started. There was nobody to look at. I was head of marketing for a toy company in 2009, my second year out of college. I had no formal understanding of what an insertion order was. I knew how to do Facebook and in MySpace and all these things back in the day. And I gravitated towards Howard Schultz because I liked Starbucks. I had worked at Starbucks in college. I always appreciated how his thoughts were on culture and marketing. So I just gravitated towards that. And I looked at how they did social media and I was like, cool, I like this. That's cool. I'm going to focus on what they do. Right. Yeah. Granted, I never talked to Howard Schultz, but I just kind of looked to see things that he did because I liked the company culture because I actually had background in it. I got to work for Starbucks and I got to work for Apple. I worked for Apple before the iPhone was even out. So I had background in Steve Jobs and Howard Schultz. And so I was fortunate to have just touch points with these companies where they were starting. But that to me is the big one. You're hounded by marketing conferences, you're hounded by podcasts and newsletters, everything. Find that one or two people that you think have done it well and try to engage in everything they've done. And if you're in their neighborhood, hit them up, take them out for lunch and just really try to engage. I think a lot of people are down to mentor the younger generations. Because first off, if you're looking at someone who's in their late 30s or early 40s, that entered the workspace during the last recession, the boomer generation did not help us. I'll be honest. They left us high and dry.
Yeah.
I was scammed by multiple marketers who charged me upwards of $3,000 to meet with them and offered me nothing that I couldn't have found online. And I think I don't want that to happen to the next. And I think that we're down to help. I don't know anyone that's in my space that isn't down to give education. And there's so much free education out there, but
Right.
overwhelming. You have to find it to stick with like 2 or 3 people at the most and just learn from them, because you're just going to get lost with the sea of content these days. So that's my take.
That was awesome. Well, I want to just thank you for being on here. It's honestly such a blessing. And I know that anybody who's listening to this will take a lot from it. But that being said, David, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? How can they contact you?
You can find me on Twitter, Herrmann Digital, 2 R's, 2 N's. That's literally it.
That's
I don't
it.
do LinkedIn.
Don't call me.
I don't do anything. Yeah, don't call me. Just find me in there. If you DM me, at me first, because I get a lot of spam messages and random messages and I don't look at. So at me first and then I'll follow up.
We'll put it in the bio too on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if anybody wants to see that, I have his Twitter handle. You can add him, message him. Don't call him, as he said. But anyway, such a blessing. Thank you so much, David. And
Yep.
yeah.